I saw one of my old students the other day. I was like, how's it going? And he goes, I finally found a new job. And I go, that's awesome. And he was like, yeah, I finally got a job using English. And I was like, that's really fabulous.
Welcome to another Happy English podcast coming to you from New York City. And here's your English teacher, Michael.
All right. Thank you, John, and thanks, everyone. It's Michael here from Happy English, and I help people speak English better. And this is Happy English Podcast, episode 876, using say, tell, was like, and go. Thanks for tuning in, and welcome back to the Happy English Podcast. So let me ask you, have you ever got stuck trying to figure out when to use say and when to use tell to talk about what someone said? These words seem really similar, but they're used in different ways. So today, let's break it down nice and easy with some everyday examples. And then I'm going to show you two other more natural ways to talk about what someone said that are not found in most textbooks. Let's dive in. First up is say. We usually use say when we're quoting someone or focusing on the words they used. For example, the other day, my friend looked outside and she said these words. Wow, it's going to rain. She said it. That's the quote. Or if you didn't hear me clearly, you might ask, what did you say? See, with say, we don't really focus on who heard it, just the words themselves. But using say in a conversation can be tricky, especially when you're reporting what someone else said. Let me show you what I mean. I saw Jack today. He said, I need to go on a diet. That's a direct quote. Exactly the words Jack used. I need to go on a diet. And I can write that quote down and it'll be clear to the reader. But when I tell another person what Jack said, I have to change the pronoun. I can't say, Jack said, I need to go on a diet. That sounds strange. That sounds like I, Michael, I am the person who needs a diet. Maybe I do, but that's a different story. So, I need to match it to Jack. Jack said he needs to go on a diet. So, when you're reporting speech with say, watch out for the pronouns. My neighbor said, I went to a new cafe that opened downtown. But when I tell you what she said, I use, my neighbor said she went to a new cafe that opened downtown. And you'll notice that when I use say or said, I'm mentioning the words someone used, not who they talked to. When you want to or need to mention the listener, you have to use tell. Like, my neighbor told me about a new cafe that opened downtown. She didn't just say it out of her window to the whole place. She told me. That's the difference between say and tell. Tell always needs the listener. She told me, I told her, he told us, and so on. So the pattern is tell someone something. Like, she told me a funny story. Or, can you tell him the meeting is at 3? Or, he told us he was moving to California. And just like with say, you need to pay attention to the pronouns and tenses. For example, if my friend said, I got a new job, I can report it like this. My friend told me he got a new job. So, we use tell when we mention the listener, and we use say when we mention the words they used. My neighbor said she went to that new cafe. She told me that it was nice. Okay, now that you know that, you might want to know this. In everyday conversational English, there are actually two other verbs that you can use when you talk about what someone said. The first one is be like, or in the past tense, was like. We use be like when we want to describe a conversation that we had with someone to another person. I'm going to show you two versions of the same story. First, the textbook way. Here it is. Yesterday, I saw my neighbor. I said, "What's up?" And she said, "I went to that new cafe in town." And then I said, "How was it?" And she said, "It was awesome." This is probably a style of speaking that you learned in a textbook somewhere. Now, here's an example of that same conversation with my neighbor using was like. Yesterday, I saw my neighbor. I was like, "What's up?" And she was like, "I went to that new cafe in town." Then I was like, "How was it?" And she was like, "It was awesome." Using was like in this way makes you sound more natural and more casual. Here's another example. Jack came to work late this morning. The boss was like, "Why are you late?" And Jack was like, "Because there was traffic." And the boss was like, "There's traffic every day." And Jack was like, "Oh, you were late too?" And the boss was like, "If you come late again, you're fired." Wow, that boss doesn't have a sense of humor. The other conversational style of reporting speech is with using go. We use go instead of said. The interesting thing here is that we tend to use go in the present tense. So you have to remember, I go, she goes, and he goes. Let's look at that conversation with the boss using go. Jack came to work late this morning. The boss goes, "Why are you late?" And Jack goes, "Because there was traffic." And the boss goes, "There's traffic every day." And Jack goes, "Oh, you were late too?" And the boss goes, "If you come late again, you're fired." And notice again that this story is about something that happened in the past. It happened this morning. But when I tell you about it, I use the present tense. The boss goes, Jack goes, like that. Native English speakers tend to use the present tense in storytelling to make the story sound more real and alive. Here's one more example of the story of me and my neighbor using go. Yesterday I saw my neighbor, so I go, "What's up?" And she goes, "I went to that new cafe in town." Then I go, "How was it?" And she goes, "It was awesome." Again, this is how we use was like and goes in conversational English for reported speech. It's casual, friendly, and a natural way you can tell someone about a conversation you had or heard. So, try using one or two of these phrases today when you speak English. Thanks for listening. And hey, if you want to practice this kind of language with me and a group of other awesome English learners, come check out my Podcast Learners Study Group. We meet once a week and practice the language from these podcast lessons together. It's a great way to build confidence and improve your speaking. Just check the link where you are listening to this podcast right now, or Visit myhappyenglish.com and choose podcast episode 876 for more information. And remember, learning another language is not easy, but it's not impossible. And I'm here to help you on your journey.
This podcast was brought to you by Happy English. Please visit myhappyenglish.com. Show your support for Happy English by leaving us a review. Get English, get happy, Happy English.